Hi everyone, today I wanted to share with you these great white washi tapes that come from Kaszazz. So they come in a set of 3, so there's a quite a wide one, a medium one and a thinner one, and they're super versatile and fantastic for all sorts of crafting projects. So I wanted to show you a couple of things that you can do with these tapes, and then we're going to make a project out of one of the things that or a couple of the things that we do. So I'm going to start with the thick one. Now I've got myself a non-stick craft mat, and I'm just going to get myself a length of the washi tape. Now I'm not measuring it because I will use up the scrap, so I'm usually pretty good at that. So I'm going to get one of each in the same or similar length. Just tear those off. Now I know I'm sticking it to the craft mat, but they will come off quite easily, and we're going to be using some stamps to decorate the tapes. So let's start with the chrysanthemum uncut set from Kaszazz. Now those washi tapes in that 3-pack are $7.95 for those. So okay, now I'm going to get the smallest chrysanthemum stamp, just mount it onto some cardstock, and we'll start with Memento. Could use archival for this as well, and then we're just going to randomly stamp this chrysanthemum stamp all the way down the length of the washi tape, leaving some gaps as we go. So I'm trying not to push too hard on the side that I'm not stamping down, so I can re-stamp it. Okay, let's just get a baby wipe, and then I'm going to use archival ink in the blue, but you could use any colour you like just to fill in the gaps. So again, not to stamp too hard on where the tape is not, and then we can stamp twice. Ink it up every couple, and do try to make it as random as possible, and then you can go back and fill in a few of the gaps. Spin that around. There we go. Okay, so that's our first tape done, and we'll just leave that to sit there and dry. Now the second tape that we're going to do is going to be using the large chrysanthemum stamp, so I need a bigger stamping block for that. And first of all, before I actually stamp, I'm just going to take one of the alcohol markers from Kaszazz. So that's the, what colour did I choose? I chose the aqua. I'm going to use the chiselled end, and I'm just going to colour that in all the way across. So try and do long, smooth strokes as much as possible. The more you overlap, the more streaks you get in it. But sometimes streaks can add character as well. So, I missed that bit there. Okay, so I'm just going to let that dry, and I'll do the middle one while I'm waiting for that to dry. So from Kaszazz again, I've got this Esprit Vivine set of stamps, and all of Kazazz's multiple stamps come in one rubber-backed sort of set, and then you actually cut them apart. So I'm just going to pull that one out, which is their little flower there, and place that onto the stamping block. Now again, I'm using the Memento black ink, and we just stamp these randomly. So it's very similar to the first pattern, but this time we're doing a thicker washi tape and have chosen a slightly different flower to go with it. Okay, so we're going to go back, because these are going to be made on used on a series of cards. I'm going to go back with the blue, so we've got that similar colour. So I did forget to say what colour stamp ink pad this was. So it's the Forget Me Not by Archival. Same again, just random patterns all the way along. And make sure you are sure to fill in any gaps as you go. Now that looks really messy at the moment, but trust me, it will work out in the end. So just clean that up again. Put that one away on the side for now. And now this one should be dry enough, yep, to stamp the large chrysanthemum on it. So because we've got a very skinny tape and a very large stamp, I'm just going to ink up one side and try and stamp along there. And again, very random in how we do it, but trying not to use up too much ink. And you can see that pattern that comes along there, and if we change direction each time, then we're giving a bit of variety to the pattern, and it doesn't matter if you miss a bit. I think that just adds a little bit of character to it. Okay, so we'll clean that up. We can clean up our craft mat a little bit on the outside, and then once we've peeled those up to use them, we will clean it up a little bit more. Because it's a non-stick craft mat, it will just wipe clean. Okay, so while those are waiting to dry, because it's a washi tape, it does take a little while to dry, what we're going to do is get our card ready. So I'll move those to the front. Now I've just got a white C5 card here, and just get your bone scorer and smooth out the crease. And the first thing we're going to do is actually take this chrysanthemum stamp again, and this time we're going to cover it with the Memento black ink, and make sure we get good coverage, because this is going to be the background. So I'm just going to clean up the edge where I got a bit extra, and then just to the right hand side, going to stamp that fairly firmly so we get good coverage there. Excellent. Clean that up. Okay, and then I'm going to just put that aside as well, and we're going to get this butterfly stamp. And put it onto our stamping block. And again, sticking with that black and blue theme, I'm going to ink up very well the stamp. I'm going to take another piece of cardstock, and I'm going to stamp that butterfly in place, like so. So now that we've got that butterfly in place, what we can do is go in, before we cut it out, with our distress stain, and so I've got tumbled glass distress stain, and just, this is a new one, so it's not quite, okay, and we're just going to dab that on and make it a bit heavier in the middle. Okay, so it's good to get an uneven coverage, because that makes it appear a bit more realistically, and we'll just set that aside to dry as well. Okay, so what we're going to do now is this card will open up like that, and we need a sentiment down there. Now I really like this set of sentiments. These are called mini messages, and Kaszazz has quite a few different varieties you can choose from. But this is the Wishing You uncut set, so the idea is that you can stamp Wishing You, and all these things can go either inside the card, or Wishing You can be at the top and that can be down the bottom. And this is probably my most used sentiment stamp from Kaszazz. So I'm going to take the Wishing You sentiment, and we're going to put that just across the bottom there. So again, with the black Memento ink, and I'm terrible at messing up the edges. It's always good to clean it up so you don't get that mark around your sentiment. It's worth taking the time to do that. Okay, now we're going to stamp the Wishing You across the bottom there. There we go. Clean that up. Alright, and then we're going to go back to these washi tapes that we did. So for this card, I'm going to use this thick washi tape. So let me just trim some of that off. And then what I'm going to do is trim a banner at the bottom. Now it is still a little bit wet, so I may end up with ink all over my hands. I usually walk away and make a cup of coffee and let it dry a little bit better first. Just get rid of that scrap. Okay, and then we're going to lay it down. Try not to rub on it too much because it is still wet. You won't have that problem if it's dry. And keep your fingers clean because you can see I'm starting to ink up the card there. A bit of paper towel always comes in handy for these situations. Alright. And then I think we'll go with the really thin one as well. So peel that up off the craft mat, and you can see that it does come off quite easily. Now I want this one to be slightly shorter than the other one, so I'm going to take it about there. Now if I do cut it too long, I can always just wrap it over the top of the card. So again, trimming our little pennant shape at the end, and then just off to the side we're going to run it like so. Again, just cleaning up my fingers. That will dry a lot better as it goes on. Okay, now what I've got also is some glossy accents here. So this butterfly is still slightly wet, but what we want to do is cut it out and stick it on there with magic mounts and glossy accent it. The other thing that I'm going to do, and I'll show you a finished version of this in a moment, is I've got a rhinestone, and I'm going to take my alcohol marker just so that all the colours kind of match, and I'm going to colour that rhinestone. Using the same alcohol marker I used before, so we're getting similar colours throughout. Okay, probably should have cut one of these in the interest of time. And cut around, and so the beauty of all of this is you could do this in any colour that you like. I quite like aquas and blues, but if you were fond of red, you could do a red. Because you're starting with blank and you're adding your own style or colour style to it, yeah, you can kind of pick and choose whichever colour you like. You could do it in pinks or greens or anything like that. Now this is going to be too wet to dry, and I'm not going to, my heat tool is not around, so I'm not going to be able to dry it for you. But if I just show you that we mount that there like so, and place this fingernails are getting in the road, place that on the head, and the other thing that we do is just take that archival ink again and just run the ink around the edge of the card. It gives it a nice frame without actually having to add an extra paper layer to it. So you can see that it frames it really well, and then once that butterfly is dry, we'll trim it up and use some magic mounts to mount it. Now I do cover that with glossy accent, you don't have to, and you would also use glossy accent to stick down the stone. So here is one that I made previously.